Hi, I'm Amy.
And I'm Sam, and we're bad at watching movies.
But we're good at switching places, pulling pranks, and tricking our parents. Okay.
She doesn't sweat at all.
Welcome to LA, baby.
It's gooey, it's sticky, it's everything.
Are we bad at watching movies?
In this episode, we'll be discussing the 1998 movie, The Parent Trap.
Here at Bad at Watching Movies, we watch some of our favorite movies, good or bad. We talk about everything from scenes to characters, and we always have something to laugh about.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
The summary for this movie from IMDb is identical twins Annie and Hallie, separated at birth and each raised by one of their biological parents, discovers each other for the first time at a summer camp and make a plan to bring their wayward parents back together. Mouthful. But that's
Mouthful.
a pretty good description.
Yeah, that sums up the movie pretty
it's not
well.
as like cryptic and vague as some other IMDb descriptions.
Yeah. I agree. Probably one of the most notable actresses in this movie is Lindsay Lohan. She plays the twins Hallie Parker and Annie James. So it's a lot of split screen action, editing. And I just want to give her props too, because I feel like it was like a lot of acting for her.
Yeah, she's done double. She's the main character and has to do double of all of that.
All of that.
That's crazy.
And learned probably so many more lines than like anyone else in the movie. And like she just has to come up with two different personalities. Like, it's amazing.
So many costumes. Yeah, an accent for one, not an accent for the other, trying to keep that straight.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive.
And then we have Dennis Quaid. He plays their father, starting off as Hallie's father, but obviously we know that they are twins. It's not any secret.
Yeah.
So he is both their fathers.
And then we have Natasha Richardson, who plays Elizabeth James, and she plays the mother.
Mm-hmm. Gorgeous. Love her.
Yeah, she's great.
And then we have Elaine Hendricks. She is Meredith Blake, who is our villain, essentially. I love her character, though.
Yes, she's fabulous. My favorite actress is Lisa Ann Walter, who plays Chessie.
She's wonderful.
Fabulous. And recently, Elaine and Lisa were seen at like a red carpet event together, and they were taking photos, and they just looked really cute. So it was that was like a headline. It was
I love that.
Parent Trap actresses.
Yeah. I feel like it's getting like
whatever.
another surge of popularity.
Yeah.
And then Lisa Ann Walters in Abbott Elementary, which is really popular right now. I also just listened to Jinx Monsoon is a very popular drag queen, and she has a podcast. She had Lisa Ann Walter on.
Oh, really?
And it was a really good episode.
Ooh.
Highly recommend. Oh, and then we have Simon Coons, who is Martin.
Yeah.
He is Annie's butler, and he's been with Annie since like she's grown up.
Yeah.
So like pretty much her whole life.
Yeah. And Chessie is kind of the Hallie's like mom figure, because Hallie just has the dad. And Martin is Annie's like dad figure, because she just has a mom. So I like how they kind of made those characters as like they're known the kids since they were like born and like forever. So they kind of like act as parents. We start on a really, really fancy boat at a wedding with the song that L is for the way you look. And it looks like two people are getting married. They're signing like the wedding papers. They're putting on rings. It's really fun. Everyone seems to be having a really good time. It's a beautiful boat.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Beautiful. And then we see the photo at the end with two people looking at each other very much in love.
Yes. And then we cut 11 years later. It was like 11 years and how many months?
11 years, 9 months.
9 months. So
yeah.
The twins, Hallie and Annie, are now 11 years old, almost 12. October 11th. That's their birthday.
Yeah.
I always remember. They're at the summer camp. We meet Hallie first. She's kind of supposed to be like this spunky California girl.
Yep.
It's kind of odd to me that they're in a summer camp in Maine.
Yeah.
And she lives on the other side of the country, which is like very far away. So like probably costs a lot to get there in the first place,
Yeah, but they're rich.
Yeah.
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 They come from rich families.
Yeah, they do. Because Annie shows up
in a limo.
Yeah.
So we meet Hallie, and she kind of hooks up with another girl who's like, yeah, there's an art to pulling out your duffel bag, because her duffel bag gets kind of covered by a bunch. And this tie-dye girl kind of walks up and just pulls her out, and they're like, that's the kind of girl we need.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, yo, tie-dye girl. And so the tie-dye girl comes over, helps get the bag out, and then the three of them are kind of established as friends, and they get to stay in the same cabin together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have a limo that pulls up, and then we meet Annie, who is the other twin, the Lindsay Lohan twin. And I really like the relationship between Martin and Annie, the butler, because they have like the secret handshake. That's
Yeah.
really cute.
Yeah.
He's listing off all the things that her mom wanted to make sure that she had. So like vitamins and fruits and vegetables that you're supposed to eat every day and all of that. And one important thing to note too about the girls is they both are avid poker players. So they love the game of poker.
And we meet the camp warden and her daughter, who's like kind of one of the head counselors, I guess.
Yeah.
And she's the first person who has an interaction with both Hallie and Annie, but like gets mixed up, doesn't know what's going on.
She's like,
the
you were
food
just over
buffet."
there.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. But that happens so many times in this movie. So
Yeah.
But that's the first time we're like, oh, there's twins.
Yeah.
But they don't know that they're twins, and everyone here isn't aware of them like knowing each other or being related.
Right. Which you would think that a lot of other people would notice, be like, hey, that girl looks just like you.
Yeah.
Or they've come across
I
each
feel
other.
like someone would notice like pretty quickly.
But it's a movie, guys. So,
Wait.
So Hallie is fencing and doing really, really well. And the teacher's like, who wants to challenge her? And everyone's kind of like, I don't want to do it. And she's like, come on, girls. And then Annie walks up and she was like, I'll take a whack at her.
She does. She crushes it.
Yeah.
This scene is so elaborate and has like definitely doubles. Like it is
Yeah.
not Lindsay Lohan in either of these when it's fencing. Like,
No.
because they're doing like jumps and like trying not to fall off of like railing and stuff. Like it gets crazy.
Yeah. And Lindsay Lohan had enough to do in this movie. They're probably like, just go
Honestly.
learn your lines for a
Honestly.
couple days. We'll film this scene.
Yeah.
And just go relax. You're going to be doing a lot
Deserves
in this movie.
it. Yeah, honestly.
Annie ends up winning the fight, and then the counselor's like, you girls need to shake hands, and they take their helmets off and they see each other for the first time, and they're like, and everyone's like,
Big reveal. Yeah.
and it's like, okay, people should have noticed before.
Yeah.
Like, come
I love
on.
that they wait. Everyone waits to react until the girls are looking at each other, which is very much like a theatrical thing to do.
Right.
But like, no, people viewing them, seeing them next to each other would have said something before they even looked at each other.
Yeah.
But they all wait until they look at each other and they're like, oh my God.
Yeah. And then when they look at each other and shake hands, they kind of start insulting each other because they're like, we kind of look similar.
Yeah.
And Hallie's like, do you want to know the real differences between us? And Annie's like, let's see. I know how to fence and you don't, or I have class and you don't. And Hallie's like, why I oughta.
Yeah, doesn't her friend, it might be tie-dye girl, who's like, want me to, oh, no, I think it was one of Annie's friends who's like, want me to deck her for you. I love it. She puts her
The
fists up.
friends are so funny. It is nighttime and Annie is winning and playing poker.
Taking
And
all the money.
taking all the money, and
Because
Hallie
they need more.
Yeah, I'm like, God, these girls are rich.
Yeah, they're so rich.
And Hallie walks into the cabin and she challenges her. It's really cool. She walks in and is like, bad to the bone.
Like leather jackets, sunglasses.
Sunglasses, puts sunglasses on top
Yeah,
of
has her money
head,
bag that she's whipping around.
sits down, her posse sits behind her. Like it's a whole thing.
So good.
So they make a bet that the loser has to jump into the lake butt naked.
Classic camp.
Yeah, classic camp. Hallie ends up winning, and so Annie has to skinny dip, and the kids end up taking her clothes, so she's all naked.
Which is so mean.
It is, but that's a classic kids, teen,
Yep.
tween movie thing. It's like where you like steal the clothes, and
They
that's
have to
a
be
classic.
embarrassed and get back on their own. And,
Yeah.
But it's okay. Annie gets her back.
Mhm.
Her and her friends somehow get all of the cabin furniture from Hallie's cabin onto the roof.
Yeah.
And it's there's full beds. There's
How?
I have no idea. And how did no one catch them in the act? And then even then, how did no one like report it and be like, "Hey, camp counselor, there's a bunch of beds on the roof."
There's a bunch of girls like hoisting beds up. Like, did they have like a ladder?
Pulley system.
A pulley system?
They just have Lucy with her rope and the Christmas tree from while you're sleeping, and
she's just like
breaking
hoisting it
windows.
up. Oh my gosh. Later that night, Hallie and her friends get back at Annie and her crew, and they kind of like set up traps in their cabin. So it's like a lot of like shaving cream. They put honey on the floor. There's like strings in the ceiling. and a lot of like, and there's a water balloon ready to fall, like very elaborate, a lot of fucking time.
Yeah.
Also, when they're like sneaking in, that like big balloon that pops on top of Annie at the end, there's no one carrying it. Where did they fill that up?
I have no idea. And it's huge.
It's
so like
huge. Like, how did we?
And no one wakes up.
No.
None of the other girls wake up, notice it's happening.
Also, that girl, I'm just now thinking about it. The girl in the shaving cream, like hair, she just slept like this
All night.
perfectly all night and did not move at all.
I can't sleep on my back. I have tried. I just cannot do it.
Yeah. Sometimes I like just to kind of like stretch out and then like I go back. But yeah, I don't think I can fall asleep fully on my back.
I like to do it to stretch out my back, but yeah, I can't. I always end up flipping over.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. So yeah, all the girls wake up and it's like a mess. There's honey everywhere. Things are falling from the ceiling. Annie has a huge water balloon that falls on top of her. Like it is actual chaos.
It's insane.
It is.
It's gooey, it's sticky, it's everything.
Mm-hmm.
And Hallie and her posse are watching through the window and they're just cracking up. But then the warden, they're coming over and they're like, "Oh, surprise inspection." And
Yeah.
Hallie's like, don't go in there. They're sick."
She's like, well, if they're sick, someone should go in and check on them. And then they end up going in and a huge bucket of paint falls on top of them. And of course, Allie, why do I keep saying Allie?
Hallie and AJ.
Hallie and Annie get in a lot of trouble and they're sent to the isolation cabin.
Yeah, which is like far away. Everyone in camp goes with them to hike up there to get to the cabin, and then they're all told like, "Okay, go back to your activities." I'm just worried about their like safety in this,
I know.
this cabin that's like way far away from the rest of the camp.
Yeah. And why did everyone have to hike there with them? Was
I don't
some
know.
form of like shame?
I don't know, maybe. Which is
Hmm.
kind of, yeah, that's a whole thing. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe they were like, "Yeah, we're going on a hike, but then you're going to stay."
Yeah. It is really windy later that day, and one of the windows opens, knocking all of Hallie's pictures onto the ground. Annie helps her pick them up, and they kind of start to bond a little bit.
Yeah,
you
this
know?
is the first time they're like, "Okay, let's help each other." And then they start having this conversation of, "I have a dad, but I don't have a mom. I never met her." And
Yeah.
then Annie says the opposite and says like, "Hey, I have a mom, but I've never met my dad."
Yeah.
That's so bizarre. And we look
Whoa.
the same.
And we have the same birthday.
Yeah, October 11th.
Yeah. Still not figuring it out, girls. Come on. Like, let's go. It seems like Annie's gears are turning a little bit more than Hallie's are
Yeah.
at this moment, because Hallie's like, I'm hungry. Let's go to the mess hall and get a popsicle. And Annie's like, you have a picture of your dad?
Mhm.
Or, yeah, do you have a picture of your dad? And she was like, yeah. Do you have a picture of your mom? And they're like, oh, I wish it wasn't torn in half. And they're like, oh my God, mine's torn in half too.
Yeah.
And then it's just like this moment where they put the pictures, they physically can't look at them separate. They have to put them together to connect the dots that they're the same
Yeah.
photo. It's like one of those things, you know, where they look.
It's a movie moment.
They could look at the other photo and go, oh, these go together, but they
Yeah,
have
to combine them.
and it goes, and they go,
Oh my God, that's my mom, that's my dad.
and Hallie quote, if your mom is my mom and my dad is your dad, and we were both born on October 11th, then you and I are like sisters. It's like, oh, thank God, we finally figured it out.
And Annie's like, we're twins.
We're twins. It's a really, really sweet moment. They hug. They have matching necklaces.
Yeah.
One has an A, one has an H. So it's a really sweet moment. And so they kind of come up with a plan to switch places.
Yeah, they're
So-
like, I want to meet, Annie wants to meet dad, Hallie wants to meet mom, so this is the best way for them to do it.
Yeah. So they kind of start getting to know each other's lives a little bit more. It's kind of like a crime, you know, like people like put like the rope together. They start to create like a vision board
Yeah.
of like the layout of their house. And Annie's like, this is our dining room, but we only eat in there when it's Thanksgiving or Easter or like special holidays. Annie's showing pictures of like grandfather and mom, Martin, so they can start learning the names. And it's like this like montage of them learning each other's lives, ends with them on like a dock doing the secret handshake between Annie and Martin.
Yeah, because they got to train, they got to
Mhm,
know. But
mhm.
there are a couple other things too.
Yeah.
Because not only do they need to know each other's lives, they need to look the same. And while they are twins,
Mhm.
Annie's hair is quite a bit longer.
Yes.
And Annie does not have pierced ears, but Hallie does. So poor Annie has to go through a full-on transformation where
And
she has
Hallie
to
has to do nothing.
Yeah, Hallie has to do nothing.
Ugh.
But Annie has to get her hair cut, which having another girl cut your hair when you're like 11 is very scary.
Yeah.
And then to have another girl pierce your ears at summer camp. I know there's girls who've done this. I know. But like, oof, that it's just like I would be terrified.
Yeah, she was like heating up like
Could
the
she get, like, clip earrings and try that for a while? I don't know.
That would be smart, but I don't know where they would get those, where they would acquire. How do they
Yeah.
acquire all this stuff too?
I don't know. It's a lot. I also don't understand. I know that they're there for 2 whole months, but they both bring so many like keepsakes and like
Yeah.
decor for their cabin, like things that they put
Yeah.
up on their walls and stuff. And I'm like, if I were gonna be there for 2 months and at camp where like things get muddy and dirty and it's cold and like you don't really, it's not a home, I would not bring any of that stuff with me. Like maybe like
No.
if I was a kid, like maybe like my teddy bear or something that was important to me, but not
Yeah.
like all of my photos. You know, like she had like full albums.
I know. But it's unfortunately time to say goodbye at
Yeah.
camp. And everyone's really sad. And I can imagine the like you get attached to these girls 2 months every single day, all day long, and then all of a sudden you have to say goodbye.
Yeah.
There's girls that are like, promise to call me every day.
Yeah.
If only if you promise to write. And I'm like, she's not calling.
No, she's not writing either. I also love that the boy who came to the camp is leaving too. So he was there the whole time. He's like, "Oh, bye guys, I'll miss you so much." So I love that he like got roped in and had to
Yeah,
stay.
I mean 2 months. I mean, he probably like just made friends and made it work.
Yeah.
So Annie and Hallie go their separate ways to meet their mom and dad. They say their goodbyes. Martin's not there. Is Martin there?
I think Martin either picks, he might see her at the airport because he
Right.
picks up Annie pretty early. And he immediately notices her hair and the ears pierced, like right away. And I was like, wow, he is quick.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess that's something you notice if you see someone every day. But like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I feel like I'm just not very observant.
I know. I feel like I get a haircut, and Andrew, my boyfriend's like, I took him like, I didn't get a
To know,
haircut. I did
yeah.
get a haircut, but yeah, when I cut my hair really short, I didn't tell him that I was doing it just to see if he would notice,
Yeah.
and he didn't.
notice.
And he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah," and I had to like tell him, and I was like, "It's significant.
This
like it
is
was a lot of
different.
hair."
Yeah. Did you notice that I got my haircut?
I did. I just didn't say anything. So Hallie as Annie arrives in England, greeted by Martin.
Mhm.
And then she gets home, and there's a really cute sign that says "Welcome home, Annie." And God, their house is nice.
It's so cute. It's so quaint. I think they're like really close to like London. Like they can go into the city and enjoy it. And I mean, she's a famous designer, so
Yeah, so they have that money.
and she meets her grandfather,
Uh-huh.
which is a big moment because like it's the first time ever meeting her grandfather. So she smells him and hugs him and just wants to remember the moment of meeting her grandfather.
And what did she say? I wanted to remember how you smell like peppermint and chewing and smoking
and
tobacco.
pipe tobacco, yeah.
Pipe tobacco.
Yeah. I love that everyone who's like a supporting family member kind of in these households, they're all so sweet.
Everybody
so
in
nice.
this movie is so nice except for Meredith.
Yeah.
That is
Which the
the
contrast
only-
is obvious.
Very stark, but it's like every family member is so sweet. I mean, we'll get into it later, but yeah, everybody's like just the nicest.
Yeah.
So mom comes down the stairs and they have a really sweet moment. This, yeah,
Yeah. Hallie as Annie.
is her ears freshly pierced, or is
Her
that
ears are freshly pierced. Well, they're not, but mom thinks they are.
because
Because it's Hallie as Annie,
Oh,
who
oh,
didn't have her
oh.
ears pierced, but Hallie did.
Oh my God, I am going to
So
like pray
new,
for me.
It's new for the household, but not for Hallie, who is Annie.
Oh my God, pray for me, guys. This is gonna be,
Send out a prayer.
this is gonna be quite the movie to get through. Martin finds Hallie's stuffed animal.
Mhm.
I'm blanking on the name.
Cuppy.
Cuppy. And he's like, "Oh, so since it's not yours, should we just throw it away?" And I'm like, "Martin,
That's so mean. Yeah.
Come on.
It is like raggedy and gross.
I know, but,
But
that's
it's like a kid's-
a
yeah.
kid's thing." But she was like, "No, I'll send it back to my friend. Like, I'll get it back to her. Like, let's not throw it away."
Yeah.
And he's
Even
like,
though
"Okay."
Hallie totally packed it on purpose to be her comfort friend.
Yeah. What is Martin doing going through her shit?
I know. I think maybe he was unpacking for her. Maybe that's his job. But can you imagine as a kid, someone unpacking and packing for you? I mean, like when I was really little, my parents would, but then like at a certain age. I feel like by 11, my parents would be like, "You're packing your stuff. You forget something."
Yeah. Sorry. It's your own fault. Yeah.
Then Hallie, as Annie, gets to go with mom to work. She gets like called in because there's like a catastrophe with the dress.
Yeah.
And we get like this like iconic photo shoot scene where she's like, "Oh yeah, there's something wrong. Like the veil doesn't work," and she adds like a top hat to it.
I don't like it.
It's a weird.
I don't
look.
like it.
I'm really grateful that the model is so nice to like Annie. Well, Hallie, but Annie. And she's like nice to her. They like take pictures together, and are like she's picking her up and
But
playing.
why
with her.
are they taking pictures
I
together?
don't know. It doesn't really show off the dress much.
No, it's like weird, and the pictures that they like freeze on are blurry and like not
that's what
good.
I didn't get. I was like, why are the freeze frames like not good? I think they maybe didn't think about it later on, and they just actually took freeze frames of the film rather than like taking
like they didn't
pictures.
plan for it to be like
Actual still
yeah.
images.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to end that scene, Hallie kind of starts to ask her mom questions about if she'll ever remarry, and also to ask her about her father.
Yeah.
And of course, Hallie, as Annie, knows about her father, so that's the reason why she's asking.
Yeah.
Now we move to sunny California.
Ooh, Napa Valley.
Yes. Dad is picking up Annie as Hallie. They have a really cute moment where they hug, and she is just so happy to see him. Like, everyone is just so happy to see everybody else in this movie.
Yeah. And she says dad like a million times, and he's like, "Why are you saying dad so much?" Like, he's already kind of like, something's off about you. What's going on here?
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, I just missed you, and like it's so important to have a father." And she gives like a whole spiel, and
I
I'm like,
haven't-
"You're really giving it away."
I haven't been able to say father in 2 months.
Yeah. It's like, girl, you need to dial it back. Like, I know it's your first time actually seeing your father, but he doesn't know that.
Oh my gosh. We meet the best character in this entire movie, Chessie.
I love Aunt Chessie. And for the longest time, I thought it was Jessie.
Yeah.
But it's Chessie with a
Chessie.
CH.
Chessy.
Chessie.
Dad wants Annie as Hallie to meet someone, and she gets a glimpse of a woman on a porch. Chessie tells her that is Meredith Blake, and Dad had hired her to do some publicity for him, and they started dating. And Chessie is just like, yeah, she's definitely into him for his money. Like,
Yeah.
she's like, I call
She's
her
flat out.
bullshit.
Yep.
Like, you know, which is for sure true. Like,
Yeah.
I agree.
100%.
100%.
And this is where we get that moment where she's like, "Yeah, I'm 26."
Yeah. Because they're by the pool, and Annie as Hallie's like, "How old are you?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "I'm 26." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, but you're not."
No. And I love when she's like, they kind of have like a talk, and because Meredith kind of wants to know more about the dad, but also wants to get to know Hallie and like just kind of suss out the situation.
Yeah.
And Annie as Hallie is talking to Meredith and kind of trying to get her to not be into the dad by being like, "Oh yeah, he brings like tons of women over here. And he always brings out a special bottle of wine. You're not anything special," kind of like throwing her off and trying to get her to like mess up. And I love that she says, "Do you want the 411?" Classic.
So Annie as Hallie calls Hallie as Annie and tells her that Dad is dating someone. Annie wants Hallie to bring the mom to save their relationship, but Hallie does not want to leave her mom. She's like, "I just got here."
Yeah, which is fair, but it's also fair what Annie's requesting because like code red, like dad's about to fall in love with this woman.
Like, the whole reason why they're switched places is to get their parents back together.
Yeah.
So this is like definitely something they need to take care of like right away. Yeah. Hallie starts to kind of like break up the phone. She's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. We're breaking up. I can't hear you." And she hangs up on her. I really like this next scene. The scene is really funny to me. So Chessie is cooking Annie a huge breakfast, but she doesn't seem to want to eat breakfast. She's like, "Here's some eggs and bacon and blah, blah, blah. And then here's some pancakes if you're really hungry." Like a full breakfast.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, that look fucking good.
I know. It makes me so mad that she does not eat any of the food that Chessie
just
prepares.
goes-
Because even before when she makes like cornbread and stuff, and she's like, "Oh, I don't really
Like,
want
what
that
did you
much."
eat in England, dude?
I know. I was like, it sounds like Chessie's making like delicious food.
Well,
and I
maybe it's
want
like
all of it.
like greasy. It's probably really greasy, heavy.
Yeah, she was the fruits and veggie girl, so. She had a checklist.
Yeah, that's true. And Chessie's like a little concerned. She's like, "Why are you not eating any breakfast? You didn't eat your dinner the last night." And Annie's like, "Where did Dad go?" And Chessie's like, this is a direct quote. Chessie says, "Oh, I'll just have half a grapefruit, thank you. Left about an hour ago." Referring to Meredith.
Yeah. I love that Chessie just always is roasting Meredith.
Yeah. So Chessie kind of confronts Annie because she was talking on the phone at like 12 a.m. And Annie tells her that she was calling a friend on the East Coast because of the time difference. And she wanted to call when it was convenient. So Chessie's like, okay, so you wanted to call. So you called at 12 a.m. because it was convenient for your friend who's on the East Coast when it was 3 a.m. their time. And she's like, oh no, she's from the East Coast, but she was on a family trip in Bora Bora, so it was actually 7 p.m.
Oh my
Chessie's
God.
like, nice save, I guess.
Yeah, like whatever.
Whatever.
She kind of lets it slide, but it's like something's going on.
Yeah, Chessie's like starting to suspect something
Yeah,
for
because
sure.
even Sammy, the dog, kind of treats Annie a little differently, and she's like,
Yeah.
something's off. Like, Sammy loves Hallie, so
yeah.
what's going on?
What's going on?
Yeah. But then Dad has some news for Annie. He's like, how do you feel about Meredith? You know, what's your first impression? She's like,
Yeah.
oh, she's great. She's lovely. And then Dad kind of is like, well, she could like join the family. And she's like, I've always wanted an older sister.
Oh my gosh, she's so sassy.
That's so good. That is so good.
Yeah. And then he's like, no, I mean, like, I want to ask her to marry me.
Yeah.
And of course, Annie as Hallie gets very upset,
Yeah.
and she starts running back to the house.
Mhm.
And she's kind of like, she runs back into the house and is kind of like talking to herself, like pacing. And then Chessie is sitting in the chair and she says, is there something you want to share with the class? And then she goes, Chessie, you gave me such a fright. And Chessie starts to kind of question her about this. Like, what's going on? Why
Yeah.
are you using this like language of like, you gave me such a fright? And so Chessie actually starts to kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
She's like, it's almost like you're, and Annie as Hallie's like, almost like I'm who? She's like, no, forget it. And she's like, almost like I'm Annie.
Mhm.
And then the dad walks in. Chessie's crying, giving Annie a hug. She's like, I've been there since 6 pounds, 9 ounces.
Yeah.
Like, can I give her a hug? And the dad's like, what the
Yeah, you
fuck?
can hug her. Lisa Ann Walter plays that scene so well. Like, this scene is ingrained in my mind just because
Yeah.
of her reaction of just being
Mhm.
like, Annie, like her crying and everything. And then she's like, I'll just whip up whatever's in the kitchen. Like, I'll just make you all the food. Oh, it's something that happens just before this is the dad, Nick, tells Meredith, like, oh, Annie or Hallie and I were going to hang out together. So, like, you're free today. You can do whatever you want. She's like, okay, good. I have plans.
Yeah.
And Meredith gets in a golf cart with her, like, friend assistant who is very gay.
Yeah.
Clearly gay.
Very.
And she says, like, I'm going to send her to Timbuktu. And he's like, Ice one. It's so cheesy.
You
I
bet
love
it, babe.
Yeah. But if you ever need like a sassy gay assistant when you become like a rich lady, just you let me know.
I will. As long as you say that kind of
I'll say
stuff.
ice one as often as you want.
So Meredith arrives at the house and she brings a bell to ring for Chessie. She's like, do you love it? And she's like ringing the bell. And
Ugh.
Chessie comes out and she's like, you rang?
Ugh.
And so they
hate
want
it.
drinks. And so Meredith is just like the worst. She goes off to talk to Annie as Hallie kind of one-on-one. It does not go well. And Meredith tells her that she's going to marry her father whether she likes it or not.
Yeah.
And they're not vibing. Meredith is
No.
kind of like levels with her and just says like,
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm marrying your dad.
Yeah, and a line that she says is, take it from someone who got her molars very early in life. And I'm like, oh my God, this movie.
Early molars. Holy
Ugh.
moly. And then the next thing happens is Annie as Hallie gets a fax, SOS from Hallie as Annie. Martin's kind of confused by it. The family's at dinner and Hallie as Annie is trying some wine.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, it's too robust for my liking. But I'm partial to softer grapes or something
Yeah,
like
and
that.
they're
And they're like,
How does she know about wine?
do they do wine tasting at camp?
Yeah. For 11-year-olds.
For 11-year-olds? Like, what's going on?
But hint, hint, she lives in a vineyard,
Mhm.
so. And Martin has the 911 or the
911,
SOS, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, like fax behind his back so she can see it. And then Hallie, as Annie, falls to the floor trying to see it, and they're like, "Oh, are you okay? Like, what's going on?" She's like, "Oh, a few too many sips." She literally had like the smallest
Yeah,
sip.
but she's also 11.
Yeah.
But I wonder if her dad lets her like try the wine.
Probably a sip isn't gonna hurt you. Is it illegal? Probably technically, but like you're at home.
Well, you're at home drinking with your like legal parent.
Yeah, and it's not like you're getting drunk. It's like, here, taste this. This is what wine is.
Hallie as Annie kind of runs out of the house after
and she
seeing
goes down
it.
like a few blocks and like down into town to a phone booth, and that's where she calls Hallie.
Yeah, and she's like, they're gonna get married, and they try to figure out a plan to get mom to see dad. And Hallie as Annie's like, okay, I'll tell her in the morning, like that we're going, like I'll figure it out, we'll get there. And grandfather happens to be outside the phone booth.
He's right there, and he's like, maybe we need to have a little talk.
Yeah. And then it cuts to Hallie as Annie goes to tell her mom that she's going out of town. And the mom's like, so where are you going? Like, you're 11 years old. Where the fuck are you going?
Yeah, you're going out of town.
And so she actually comes clean that she is Hallie and that they need to go to Napa to see Annie and Dad. And of course, the mom is like over the moon. She's like, "You're Hallie."
She's
I
so
can't
emotional.
believe
Grandpa's
it."
smiling. Martin is a wreck. He is bawling.
It is like the best reaction ever.
Every time there's a reveal about who's who in this movie, I get emotional because the other people are so excited. Like Chessie is the first one, and then we have the grandfather, and then we have mom, and then Martin, and I'm just like, every time someone is like, "Oh my god, like you're here,"
Yeah.
it's so sweet.
So the last person to know, I guess, at this point is Dad.
Yeah,
He's the only one who fucking doesn't know.
yeah, he does not know, nor does Meredith.
So mom agrees in the end to fly to Napa to figure this whole thing out, but she's not really taking it all too well. Like in front of Hallie, she's like, "Oh, this will be great," and then in front of Martin, she's like hair roller, she's smoking a cigarette. She's like, "Have you ever seen me like this, Martin?"
And he's like, no. Because obviously she still kind of has like this lingering feeling towards Nick and wants him to, I think she still kind of likes him and she knows that. And she asks Martin to go with them. She's like, "You don't have to come as our butler, just as a friend. You bring me so much comfort. I just want someone else there." And he's like, "Gladly." And he's like, "But can I suggest, as a friend, I would wear this little number." And he brings out like this really pretty dress, this nice black dress. He's like, "With your legs," like, which again, I feel like Martin has to be gay.
Yeah.
And then they twist that and try to. I mean, people are different, but I feel like. I'm going to say that it was straight washing. Anyway.
I would agree. And yeah, Martin looks really cool. When he walks out to the car when they're like packing everything up, he's like in like a leather jacket. He's got the sunglasses on. Like he is dressed.
He's a whole new Martin.
Yeah, he is ready to go. So the whole plan that they come up with is they're going to meet at this really hottie-da hotel where I think Meredith and the dad are planning to get married.
Yeah.
So the plan is to everyone to meet there. So Meredith and her parents are waiting at the hotel for the rest of the family. Meredith's quote is, "Now be nice. He is all I ever wanted, plus millions more."
Yeah. The parents are just as bad as Meredith. They're just money hungry people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dad, Annie, Chessie, and the dog, Sammy, all arrive at the hotel. And
Sammy.
Meredith is like, "You brought a fucking dog?"
Yeah.
And then she's like, "It was Hallie as Annie's idea."
Yeah.
And Meredith reaches down to the dog and goes, "Oh, good dog." And the dog tries to bite her hand off, and Chessie goes, "Good dog."
Perfect. And then, they all meet Meredith's parents. And I love that her mom's name is Vicky. And she, I don't know, it always sticks with me the way she says it to Annie. And she's like, "You can call me Aunt Vicky." I don't know why that's
hello, pet.
Yes,
I
hello,
hate that.
pet.
I
you
hate
can
that.
call me Aunt Vicky.
And so Hallie, who was previously Annie, and Mom and Martin get to Napa, and the mom is very drunk.
She is wasted because she was so nervous about this. And they make a point of it a couple times that, like, she never drinks normally. Like,
No.
Not really. And tonight, like, today of all days, she's wasted.
She's like, I She was like, to Martin, she was like, I don't know if you'd believe it, but I had never tasted vodka before this trip. And she's just like chugging those like airplane vodkas. Like, okay, they're probably flying first class and the shit's probably all free.
Yeah.
So,
honestly.
I mean, go off.
Yeah, really.
And so I have the series of what happens next of events because
Okay,
a
it's a
lot is
lot.
going on.
Before you do it,
Okay.
I have this concern with the fact that the hotel is nice. It looks
Yeah.
like a very nice hotel. But Meredith says something to Nick about how she doesn't want to have the wedding at his house and would rather have it at this hotel. And have you seen the property that he lives on? It is gorgeous.
Amazing.
I would much rather have a wedding there. Anyway,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, and they have a pool.
Yeah, it's just like it's
And
beautiful.
all
It's a
the
vineyard.
wine.
It's so gorgeous. It's hills, it's outdoors, it's sunny, and she wants to do it in this hotel that's like nice, but like it's just a hotel.
Yeah, but
I
she's
don't
not an
know.
outdoors girl.
That's true.
And the vineyard's probably too like outdoorsy for her.
Too much, I guess.
Okay, so there is kind of a series of events that happens. It all kind of happens really quick, and I took my time to kind of get it all down. So I hope I got it all down.
Okay.
So here's what happens. So Mom is drunk and forgets her bag as Hallie and Martin are getting in the elevator. She walks out to grab it. Sammy, Annie as Hallie and Chessie are all walking to the elevator, and Sammy sees the real Hallie, runs into the elevator, leaving Chessie and Annie standing outside of the elevator. The elevator closes. Mom sees Annie and goes, "Oh, you didn't have to wait for me. Like, you could have gone up. Were you always wearing that sweater?" Because obviously she's in a new outfit. Chessie kind of turns around as to not be seen. And then Dad and Meredith are going to the honeymoon suite, and as the door closes, Dad sees Mom and is very shocked and confused.
Yeah.
So that's all kind of the next scene that happens.
Yeah.
I hope I got it.
Many, yeah, no, I think that's everything. There's so many like you saw you. So now we know Nick isn't aware why Liz is there.
Yeah.
But he now sees her for the first time. And I think gears are turning now with Liz, where she's like, he didn't know I was coming. I thought the plan was for us to meet here. What's going on?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So she goes upstairs to kind of confront the girls because she's like upset. She was like, yeah, I just saw your dad and he did not look like he was expecting to see me.
Yeah. And Chessie kind of pulls them all into the room. They have that conversation. I love this, though, where she's like, oh, hey, you probably don't remember me. And she's like, Chessie! And she gives her a hug and like a kiss on the cheek. And I'm like, I love that she remembers Chessie because who wouldn't?
I know. I remember her. And Chessie was like, I knew I liked her.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, so they kind of get pulled into that room. And the mom is starting to kind of get out of her like drunken state where I think she was kind of... You know, when you're like drunk and having fun and then an event kind of just like pulls you out and then you start to just go fucking downhill because it's not fun anymore to be drunk. That's exactly where this mom is right now.
100%.
So she's kind of spiraling. And this whole spiraling about her being like, oh, the dad, you know, he didn't know I was coming and why'd you do this to me? I'm humiliated. Martin strolls out in a Speedo and everyone's like, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like, oh, I was just going to go for a dip. And Chessie's like, okay.
All right, Martin.
So they kind of have a moment where they kind of feel like they're kind of into each other a little bit.
So now we're like, okay, Martin's not gay,
Okay.
but like,
whatever. Sure.
They kind of try to sneak out too. Like, oh, we didn't have anything to do with this. And Liz is like, wait, did literally everyone know about this? And they're like, yeah. We did.
And then Mom's like, the bottom line here is the only reason we came is to switch you girls back. We're not doing anything with the dad. We only came so I can get Annie and your dad can get Hallie and we're going back home.
Yeah,
that's
because
why
she
we're here.
saw Dad with Meredith and was like, they're together. Like, I'm not. He was with some other woman. I don't know. Well, she didn't see like who it was. Just like behind.
But they were like kissing on each other and like, you know, very much, So we have another kind of series of switcheroos. So Dad
So many.
So Dad is walking to the lobby and sees Annie and he thinks it's Hallie, obviously, in the hallway, and asks her how he looks. And she's like, oh, you look fab, Dad, or something like that. He heads to the lobby and sees the real Hallie, and is like, and he seems a little confused because she's wearing a different outfit, and she was just upstairs, and he had just told, like, hey, keep an eye on Meredith or whatever. And then Hallie, after that exchange, starts to head upstairs, and Meredith walks out of the elevator and asks her, where's Dad? And of course, Hallie is confused because up to this point, she had never met Meredith. So she was like, are you talking to me? And Meredith is like, yeah. And then Hallie quickly realizes that that's Meredith. Yeah. And then she was like, oh, Dad went this way.
Yeah. So quickly up to speed. Now Hallie has met Meredith. Everyone's finally starting to meet. Yeah. Which then leads to the next meeting, which I believe is
Meredith and
Liz.
Liz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Elizabeth she's at the bar getting like a hangover cure, and it's like a nasty tomato juicy looking, I don't know.
Awful.
Yeah. And but they meet, and when she signs her check, Meredith notices like, oh my God, that's Elizabeth James.
Yeah.
She's designing wedding dresses, and I want one of her dresses. And so she has like a whole conversation with her, and she's like, oh my gosh, like this is so serendipitous. Like I'm getting married soon, and I want to wear one of your dresses. It's so crazy that you're here. Little does she know.
Yes. And so we cut to the dad. He's kind of wandering around the pool. He gets stopped by Meredith's parents at one point, but he kind of brushes them off because he's on a mission. He's like, I'm gonna find mom, and I'm gonna talk to her. He sees her. It's like this moment in like slow motion where she's like walking down the stairs, and I'm like, okay, I guess she's not hungover anymore.
She's fine.
She's fine. I guess
she is gorgeous. So
the bartender just cured her. I guess whatever that bartender made, like
magic. Yeah, give me some of that. Like I know it's nasty, but if it works, then
yeah, for sure. And so he starts to make his way over to mom, and then eventually there's chaos, and he ends up in the pool.
Yeah, fully drenched. And then they kind of have their first encounter since they've separated.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, get me a first aid kit. Like he has a bump on his head. And she's like, I'll kind of clean you up. They start to have a little bit of conversation. He is clearly into her. He is smitten in a second.
Like in her face, like, dude, you're engaged.
I thought they were going to kiss right then and there. And I was like, oh my God, this is a little soon. Like, especially because you're here to check out a wedding venue.
Yeah.
And then Meredith comes up and she's like, oh, like, how did you guys meet? And then it all gets kind of pieced together finally for everyone.
Yeah.
And Nick is like, oh, they're here together. And then he has to explain to Meredith, like, yeah, Hallie's a twin. There's another one.
Yeah.
And this is my ex-wife. She's here too. And Meredith's like, how funny that we're all here at the same time. Weird.
She has a way of talking where she's smiling, but she's just like, I hate everything. And I'm bitchy. So good. So the twins surprise mom and dad with a private boat dinner.
Yes, which I think is kind of weird that like they were both able to get a night away, especially Nick when he was there to do like wedding planning stuff. But like, I don't know. It's weird that I'm guessing he probably didn't tell Meredith about this.
Yeah, but Meredith is probably, because she's only in it for the money, so I don't know if jealousy.
It's not jealousy, but like
is really
she'd just be scared that like, oh, if they get back together, like I'm not gonna get my money anymore. Like
true,
all is failed. But she might not know at this point. So
no.
Yeah, they bring the parents to a boat. Chessie and Martin are there to wait on them.
Yes,
and they're trying to recreate the night that the parents had met, and
on the Queen Elizabeth boat, because I think they said in the beginning of the movie that they met on the Queen Elizabeth sailing from New York to England or England to New York or something like that, because they both didn't like flying at that time.
Yeah,
so they took a boat, and that's where they met. And of course, you're on that probably is like a month. 2 weeks so they just met and they got seated next to each other, so they had dinner together every night because they were seated on the same boat, so they recreated,
they fell in love.
So the parents are at dinner. They thought it would be the girls too, but they kind of tricked them into being like a date kind of thing. And Chessie and Martin have a moment like kind of like back in like the halls where they're really close to each other, and they're like, so I'll ladle and you serve. Yeah, I'll serve and you ladle. And it's like very like hot and heavy.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Jesse and Martin.
I know. And so the parents start to talk about how they actually got where they wanted to go in life, because dad is a winemaker and mom's a designer. And he was like, oh yeah, you were always like doodling on like, you know, napkins or side of newspapers. And so they kind of were very successful, and they were kind of just being like, oh, this is cool that we both were very successful in life.
Good for them.
Yeah.
I love it. Like, it's so cool. And then I have to mention it because it's a throwback to the OG Parent Trap, is when they're Hallie and Annie are peeking through the windows, and there's the circle windows on the boat, which is like, that's like a iconic scene from the original, which I do not have a super clear memory of, but I do remember that moment.
Yeah.
Because it's like a whole thing. Yeah.
In the original, do they have actual twins?
I don't know.
Because how did they do that? Because it was probably like 40s or 50s,
yeah,
wasn't
my
it?
guess is that it is, but it might not be. They might have just like switched back and forth. I don't know. That's
Technology, though, that would have...
It's a good cue. I mean, you can split a screen down the middle, but that's about it. Like, there's not green screen.
I'm interested. I should have watched it.
We should watch it.
Yeah.
Well, we can do it for this later.
Okay. I was like,
but I know there's the song, because there's like the "Let's get together, yeah, yeah, yeah," and like Hallie kind of mumbles it earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
And that's like a hint back to that movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So they talk about how they're trying to figure out like arrangements for the kids. Like they're like, well, like you could have them for the summer and they could be in school. And then Jesse's kind of standing there being like, they can't switch schools every year. And they're kind of look at her like, hey, this is kind of our conversation. She's like, oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just trying to figure out like how it would work, you know, with sharing the kids. And because they're like, obviously we can't separate them now.
Yeah, now they know about each other and about us as parents, so like they need to be able to see us as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, which is good. I'm glad that they addressed that and we're like, let's just go back to how it was. Like, obviously you can't anymore.
Yeah, because that'd be really hard, because with siblings is one thing, but twins
yeah, and then
are
being
a
like,
whole
you know
other
you have a
thing.
twin now and you're never going to see each other again. Like,
Because
no.
don't they have like some sort of like connection? Because they're in the
Some
womb
people
at the same
say
time.
that, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you're going to be so similar because you have the same DNA.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. If you're identical twins, which they are. So they
Yeah.
have the same DNA and they're the same age. So,
So,
like,
yeah.
life is going to be very similar for those two people,
Yeah.
whether they're separated or not.
Yeah.
Twin studies are so interesting. I could go off on a tangent, but I won't.
Okay. I just feel like the separation anxiety almost would be a lot. Well, Annie and Hallie are very different, but I feel like because one was raised like kind of
in
on
another
a
country too.
farm
Yeah, like
and
very different
in
circumstances.
Napa Valley, and then the other one was raised in like the suburbs of England, like very posh, like lavish. I want to live in that house.
I
in
know,
England.
it's gorgeous.
Oh my
It's
god,
so pretty. I want to live on the Napa Valley.
I know. We'll just buy both places and fly
Let's
back and forth.
fall in love, break up, go to these different places, and then we can just like
We
visit
have to
each
have
other.
twins,
We'll have
though.
twins. Sorry, Liam and Drew.
Dad kind of asked her why she left. She was like, we were young, we said stupid things. And mom kind of ends it on, she was like, well, I left, but you didn't come after me.
Yeah, classic like rom-com moment.
Yeah.
Of like, well, you didn't come after me, and he's like, I didn't know I was supposed to. Classic like dude doesn't get the message kind of moment too.
Where he's
so.
like, okay, I guess he's gone.
Yeah.
But how hard must it be though to have twin babies, you know, and like know them for a few months? Because I don't know how old Hallie and Annie were when they separated, but to like be torn, like one takes one takes the other.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that had to have been so hard.
Yeah, that had to have been tough. And I mean, they probably just tried to not think about it as much as they could after that. Kind of like, okay, this is like life now.
Yeah.
And you adapt, but
because it's a breakup and you're losing a child.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if this family really looks alike. Like, I don't know if Lindsay Lohan really looks like the daughter of either of these people, but
No.
we roll with it anyway.
Like, mom's a blonde, dad's a brunette, and of course Lindsay Lohan is redhead.
Redhead freckle. I mean, I guess they both could carry those recessive traits, but it's not super likely.
Yeah. Also, are there other twins in the family? Because I feel like that's also a thing. Like, if there's twins in the family, you could have twins.
Okay. This is a fun fact because I was listening to Jinx Monsoon's podcast, so referencing that first.
Okay.
Lisa Ann Walter said that she always remembered the twins' birthdays because she has twins as well, and their birthday is also October 11th.
Spooky.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, that's such like a oh, that's so weird.
Isn't that weird? Yeah. I was like, what? No way. And she's like, yeah, so I always remember it. And I'm like, that would make sense. I would remember that too.
Oh.
So now it's kind of like, okay, they're like, we just have to kind of figure out what we're doing. And their plan essentially ends up being like, okay, one holiday I'll send Annie over to you, and the other holiday I'll send Hallie over to you.
The holidays that they pick are weird.
It's like
the first,
Christmas and Easter?
Yeah. I'm like, why not Christmas and Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Like, why Easter?
Thanksgiving isn't really a holiday.
Oh, yeah.
In
I mean,
London.
no, that's Canada.
Canada has a Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving,
in
but
October.
not
Yeah,
England. I guess so, but I'm like,
But even so, yeah.
but she doesn't get any time off for school.
yeah, it
during
would be like,
Easter.
winter break or Christmas or spring break
Spring
or
break.
something. Yeah.
I mean, we could go
Longer
into
amount
all
of
the
time.
breaks.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the plan they come up with. And the girls are not satisfied. They're
No.
like, nope. And they try to play a swap bee on their parents. And they're like, well, how do you know who's who? And we demand that we go on the camping trip because, Dad, you promised both of us. And he's like, well, I promised Hallie. And he was like, well, I was Hallie when you promised that.
Yeah,
So-
and then I'm also Hallie, and you promised me every year. So you technically promised both of us.
Yeah. So they're like, we're going on this trip. And you're like, oh, are they going to go? Or are they not? And then we cut to them packing the car for the trip.
Yeah. I think it's like I think the scene is they play like an airplane flying, like,
Yeah.
oh, they went home, oh no, but then they didn't.
Yeah.
Like it was like one of those like, oh,
Pans
tricky.
down. Okay, they're packing for a trip.
Yeah, so Meredith, of course, is not happy about this. She was like, you're going with your ex on a camping trip without me. She's like, what am I supposed to do for 3 days? Sit at home and knit?
Yeah.
I'm like, go off and
Do
scheme.
something. I think it's fair though to be uncomfortable and be like, hey, like this is a random out of nowhere trip
Yeah.
with your ex. I can understand her being uncomfortable. And that's why the mom is Liz is very like, oh no, I understand. Like you should come with us.
Mhm.
And Meredith's like, oh, yeah, I guess I can do that. And so she's gonna go.
Yeah, and she comes down with like a very sporty outfit.
Yeah.
Like a very
She's ready
like,
for like maybe Pilates or something, but not necessarily camping.
no, and I feel like mom has kind of plotted this out
Yeah.
a little bit where she's like, I don't think Meredith can handle this.
Yeah.
So she gets Meredith to go and then backs out at the last minute.
Yeah, mom says, you know what? Like, I don't need to do this. Like, you two need to have thing. And she's also like, you also need to get to know the girls because they're half yours now.
Yeah.
Really digging in there because
Ugh.
Meredith does not like the girls.
Meredith's kind of realizing like, holy shit, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
You know?
And Chessie and mom stay behind. And Chessie's like, I would love to see that woman hike a mountain.
Yeah. They get to kind of I think they're hiking to their campsite is where
Mhm.
they're going. So yeah, it's Dad, Meredith, and the twins. So they're hiking and Meredith is not doing well. I guess she keeps stopping. She's complaining a lot. At one point she was like, I'm going to kill my trainer. He says I'm in such good shape.
And she looks like she is.
Yeah.
She's just not outdoorsy.
But I think there's a difference between being a gym in shape and then being like hiking.
Yeah, like a rugged.
Endurance is a lot
It's
different.
very different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Strength and endurance can be very different things.
Yeah.
Going for a long time. Yeah. And the girls are playing prank after prank on her. And Hallie is adding rocks to her backpack, which makes it very difficult for Meredith. That whole classic, like, I grew up with brothers. This shit happens. Like,
Yeah.
adding a rock at a time until they notice. Oh my
Yeah, and then
gosh.
there's she's like, can you hand me my Evian bottle? And so they're like, sure. I think Annie sees a lizard on the ground, so she picks up the lizard, puts it on the Evian bottle.
Oh
So
my
when
God.
when Meredith takes the drink, she sees it and like absolutely loses her mind. And the dad is kind of just like, what the fuck
What
is
is
going
going on?
on?
Yeah, like-
Why did we bring her? I think he's starting to kind of realize like, you know, why am I with this person?
Yeah, maybe this wasn't a good pick for me. She doesn't like what
Yeah.
I like. She can't handle this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I have to go to the bathroom, so girls help her. And they help her all right. They put a lizard on her head. She freaks out, obviously.
Yeah.
And then it goes into her mouth, which is disgusting.
Which I would freak out.
I would be so grossed out if a lizard was crawling in my mouth.
Like she
no.
was like sucking on it though. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a sound, and I can't. I don't like
Yeah,
it.
and I wrote that would be gross and really scary, and Yeah, so that would not be fun. So they make it to the camping spot, which is beautiful.
Yeah, it's like by like a river or a lake.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, so nice.
I was like, I would love to camp there.
Yeah. They're having a
Um,
fire. It's
mhm.
very cool. Meredith's getting attacked by mosquitoes because
Yeah, because the girls put sugar in water.
and told her it was going to repel.
Instead it's attracting them. They're also eating trout, which is
Mhm.
a type of fish, and she's like, I don't eat trout, I'll wait till breakfast, what are we having? And they're all like, trout.
Yeah.
And I'm all about like the going camping and like really roughing it, but you think you could bring more food,
A couple
and
items.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
not
some-
just fish that you were catching, because what if you didn't catch something? I would come up with a backup. Also,
Yeah.
having like actual breakfast food when you're camping is like the best. When you have like eggs and bacon.
Oh, and the coffee you make when you're camping,
So-
it's so much
'cause
better.
You're like a little chilly and you wake up and you're like, oh, it's so chilly. But you have hot coffee and like some bacon and eggs and it's glorious.
It's glorious. We need to go camping.
Yeah.
Meredith gets really upset and she says she's going to take a big sleeping pill and go to bed. But on her way to the tent, she is hitting sticks together. And Dad's like, Meredith, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, it fends off the mountain lions. And the dad's like, and then she's like, there is no mountain lions, is
Yeah.
there? And Dad's like, no.
So then she gets back at the girls the best way she knows how.
Yep.
She seduces the dad
Yep.
and just really gives him a big mackin'.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I'm going to bed.
Yes.
And the girls are kind of like a little annoyed with that. So well played, Meredith.
Well played. Yeah. In the middle of the night, the girls put Meredith's sleeping bag in the middle of the river or lake or
Yeah, her
whatever
like
it is.
mattress, the
Yeah.
floating. Oh my gosh, could you imagine?
No,
That's horrible.
but
she
funny.
Oh,
'cause
it's
her.
hilarious. Wakes up, there's a bird on her, and she's like, oh, that feels good. And then she realizes she's on water, and she freaks out. I am so impressed that she does not fall off the second she wakes up. Like, if I woke up and I was freaking out, I would have fallen in
She's
already.
just like dancing on
Yeah.
the mattress. The dad comes out and it's like, oh no, what's going on? The girls, of course, are like peeking through their tent. Like,
yeah.
we didn't
They
do
took it really
anything.
far, honestly, because she could have died.
Yeah.
Like, if you're out in the middle, like, imagine waking up at like 2 a.m., you're in the middle of water, and you like fall in, you're unaware, like, you could.
You're disoriented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so scary. But yeah, anyway, Meredith does fall in eventually.
Yep.
And she gets up to the shore and she's like, all right, Nick, ultimatum time.
Mm-hmm.
You, like, are you picking me or are you picking them? Which was a stupid thing to say.
Yeah.
He's going to pick his kids.
Of course.
And so he does. And that's the end of Meredith.
yeah. And they
Villain
get
slayed.
And so Dad and the girls drive home, and Mom is confused that they're back so soon. And she's like, where's Meredith? And he shows her the ring and says, she threw this on my head and left. Which is fair. She got put in the middle of a lake.
Yeah.
And
She tried.
yeah, I
She
would be
tried.
pissed off. But also Meredith is the worst.
Yeah. She
But-
just wants money.
She also kind of got a lot of shit.
Yeah.
It's like it's
More than she bargained for sure, and probably more than she deserved.
Yeah, but if she just wasn't so awful, like they wouldn't prank her,
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Don't be such an easy target. Again, as
Yeah.
someone who grew up with older brothers, you learn to be like, oh, rather than reacting, just kind of like downplay it as much as possible, and then they leave you alone.
yeah.
So the girls probably would have left her alone if she was just a little more chill.
Yeah, they've been like, oh, she's not as fun.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, so they get back home. The girls are in a lot of trouble, though.
Yeah.
Dad's like, you're grounded till the end of time, and it starts now. So Dad basically says, like, yeah, she broke it off. There's no more wedding.
Mhm.
And Dad says, make sure I thank them someday.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah, it was really sweet. And he's trying to make a move on
Mhm.
on Liz. And it almost works. It's almost good. But
Yeah.
then Chessie comes home and she's like, I can't do this again. Like,
Yeah.
there's just no way. We can't do this. So,
And Chessie comes home from being with Martin.
Martin!
From she was like, yeah, they went to lunch
they ladled and served.
yesterday at noon. And it's like the next evening.
Mm.
And she's just getting back.
Martin was
so...
showing off his Speedo collection.
I just love that Chessie and Martin met when he was in a Speedo, because I feel like most men, even attractive men in a
Yeah.
Speedo, I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
it's It's
a
too
thing.
much.
It's a lot.
So Martin in a Speedo, it's like he's very hairy. So like the fact that Chessie like was like, oh my God, in a
Yeah.
Speedo, I'm like, okay.
As he is.
It's
Yeah,
just-
she loves him as he is.
Yeah. But Dad is checking himself out in the mirror. And he walks by the girls' room and they're like, oh, Dad, where are you going? And he's like, good night, girls.
Yeah.
And like closes the door. And I think they're hoping that he's going to hang out with Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get back together, the thing they hoped for.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite work. And Mom is going to go home with Annie with the initial plan of like, we'll probably see you on holidays,
Yeah.
whatever.
Something to note from the wine cellar scene is that he has
Oh, yeah.
has saved and tracked down every bottle of wine from their wedding night. The
Yeah,
exact
every
bottle.
single one.
He's like, I bought all of them.
Yeah.
I was like,
It was really sweet. It was
really
a really sweet moment.
And I'm
yeah.
like, you're so rich. Like
He
that's
is.
so expensive.
That's what I'm saying. Like, can I live in this nice, warm Napa Valley
I guess it's
home?
like 98, and I guess they got married in like 86. So I guess it's like not that old, but I feel like that like 10 years old of a bottle would be expensive.
and probably a wine that that isn't like, I mean, yeah, like it's kind of probably random for a lot of people. Like, oh, this random wine from 1986. Why you're trying to track that down? But like, it was significant for them.
And it sounds like they came from pretty wealthy families too, because the grandfather had his own money.
Yeah.
And then the
To pay for
mom
that
had.
boat.
I'm like, oh my God, what are they?
What are these people doing, and
the
how
net
can I
worth.
do it? Yeah.
What is the net worth of these people? Everyone is saying goodbye. Martin, Annie, and Mom are flying back to England. It's really sad because they're tearing like 3 different sets of couples apart, right?
Yeah,
Because you
yeah,
have the
'cause-
twins, you have the mom and dad, and you have Chessie and Martin.
Yeah.
Like all of them have to say goodbye to each other, so it's like everyone's sad about it.
I know. I kind of wish Martin was like, I'll stay here.
I know he could have.
I know.
He could have.
But he loves the family as well. Like, he really is
Yeah.
a part of that family.
Yeah.
So.
The English crew arrives at home. They kind of walk into their house. They're really sad. And the mom's like, I'm going to go find grandfather, see what he's up to. And she walks into his study and because in like kind of the first scene of grandfather, he had the newspapers up and they put him down. And then this one, there's someone with the newspapers up, puts it down, and it's Hallie.
It's Hallie! And she pretty much explains, we got here faster than you. We realized like 30 seconds after you left that we couldn't live
Yeah.
without you. And Dad comes in, Nick, and he's like, I knew I couldn't make the same mistake again.
Yeah. Ah, so cute.
They are back together. She's like, how can we do this? Like, will we, like, do you want me to just like fall into your arms and like we just make this like intercontinental relationship work? Like, we're just gonna fall back in love. And he's like, yeah, like, let's just do it.
And I want to point out their kissing scene is really weird.
It is.
Because they like kiss like normal, but then like for 30 seconds they're just rubbing their lips together.
They get really like passionate, intimate, and the girls are like right there.
Yeah, and I'm like,
It's a lot for 2
about
11-year-olds
to,
to be
like, fuck
watching.
right now?
Yeah, it
Like-
looks like they're getting like pretty riled up, and the girls just have to like react like, "Oh, this is so
Yay,
great," but I'm
like-
like, I'd be a little uncomfortable.
yeah, I'd be like, Mom and Dad, we're right here.
Like, we're right here. We're gonna go outside and play.
But they did it. They got their mom and dad back together. They got remarried. They did
Yeah.
kind of like another. It seemed like they did another like boat.
I think they did
wedding?
another boat wedding. Yeah.
And Martin proposes to Chessie at a
Yeah,
wedding, which
yeah.
I feel like you're not supposed to do.
Yeah, it's a little like stealing someone else's moment. But whatever.
But whatever. Everyone's happy about it. My last line is, "What a great movie!" And now everyone is very, very rich.
yeah,
Like the 2 families
Combined.
coming together. Like
power couple.
wow.
Yeah, honestly,
Wow. Like
Wine,
so much money.
dresses that everyone wants to buy. You're set.
Oh
You're
my
good.
God. Open up like a wine and dress store.
Oh my gosh, they have like a wedding venue. That vineyard is beautiful.
Ugh,
Like, you'd be set. You could do a whole service.
I want to know the
Amazing.
net value that family is
I need
worth.
to note that this song ends with the starting song from While You're Sleeping. The "This Will Be."
Yes.
And I was like, I feel like I'm watching this movie and it's immediately gonna go into the next one.
You know what I watched right after last night?
What?
The Princess Diaries. I started it.
Ugh.
I had an impulse for some reason to watch it, and it's so funny.
Such a good movie.
I only got a little bit through it, but it was like the next to play, and I was like,
Ugh.
okay.
It's such a good movie. I love that movie so much.
But yeah, so that was The Parent Trap. This is a classic. Like, I adore this movie.
I love this movie. I feel like everyone you talk to knows this movie. They've seen it a million times. It used to be on TV all the time. Like, I cannot count on my fingers and toes how many times I've seen this movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's so many times.
It's so good, and rewatching it was so fun. Like I watched it just all the way through for fun, and then I did my notes. But yeah, it's just and it's like really well written. It has like funny moments. It's just like a really good movie.
Yeah, it's fun for the whole family and any age. It really
Yeah.
is. Like
Yeah.
you're excited about it no matter how old you
'Cause
are.
it's not inappropriate at any point. Like I feel like it's a
No.
good like family movie for like kids and.
Yeah, because the kids are gonna love like the pranking scenes and like this is so goofy.
Well, I
and-
did, yeah, growing up.
Yeah, I was like,
but
that was what I remember when I was a kid, and now when I watch it, I'm like, I remember the emotion. Like the Aunt
Mhm.
Chessie moment is always like, oh, I love that.
it's so good. Alrighty, well, thanks for listening. As always, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, all those places. We'll see you next time.
See ya. Bye.
Bye. Okay.
She doesn't sweat at all.
Welcome to LA, baby.
It's gooey. It's sticky. It's everything.
Are we bad at watching movies?
Oh, thank God. We finally figured it out.